Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Today, we're going to continue with Sarah Bombranick's Simple Abundance, 365 Days to a Balanced and Joyful Life. May 6th, being home. When I want to be brave and I'm feeling anything but, I turn to my favorite comfort ritual, reading about other women's lives, especially those from the past that have slipped through the cracks of social and domestic history. Women from all walks of life who were flesh, bone, and blood before they became icons and archetypes, whether famous or forgotten trailblazers. There is so much wisdom, contentment, and delight to be found as a literary, adventurous, and time-traveling domestic explorer. From them, I gather cautionary tales, astute observations, affectionate advice, surprising confessions, and sensational strategies to help me figure out what comes next. What were they thinking? Is an internet headline often used as a commentary over funny or bizarre photographs. But I use it as a personal prompt to discover what my cherished women with a past were thinking as they faced the heart-trending challenges, crossroads, changes, and choices that shaped the trajectory of their lives. These are stories of women who cried themselves to sleep, women who raised a fist to heaven and swore that as God was their witness, they would never be hungry again, women who howled at the moon in righteous fury, women who fiercely protected their homesteads with heroic mettle and spiritual moxie. Watch out for a woman who's paid her dues and has something to prove. Women with a past should come with a warning label, but then we'd miss the fun of hanging out with them. Throughout the rest of the book, I'll be sharing some of my favorite women with a past with you for a dose of spiritual moxie when we need it most. I searched through vintage memoirs, biographies, letters, diaries, and especially auction house catalogs of women I admire who seem to play out charmed lives in the public gaze and on the pages and canvases of their art. In fact, their lives became their art, and that's the true north for our compasses as well. I have a tremendous admiration for women who have experienced significant reversals of fortune in between the lines of real life with dignity and grace. How did they recover when sorrow slapped them down? How did they feel after achieving a long-desired dream, only to find that friends were too jealous to share their joy? How did they cope when suddenly their successes turned to ashes? Where were they when they discovered that all the money they'd entrusted to their husbands was gone, including earnings from future obligations? As I search, the same four-letter word always finds a way into their stories and into my heart: home. My favorite revelation, among many, is in Rumor Godden's memoir, A House with Four Rooms, concerning the years between 1945 and 1977. After the huge success of her third novel, Black Narcissus, by the time it was made into a breathtaking Academy Award-winning film, 1947, starring Deborah Kerr as the Mother Superior of a small group of Anglican nuns trying to establish a mission in a remote Himalayan outpost, Rumor was in despair caused by her husband Lawrence's fiscal philandering. She recognizes, as must we all, her own naivete and wishful thinking at having granted him carte blanche over their finances, even though she was the primary wage earner. Wanting for him to truly be head of the house, I had left our expenses to him, making over money when he asked, writing checks from her account to cover his debts. But nothing had been paid. Sometimes I still cannot believe it. Lawrence had stood by while I sold the furniture, knowing that he had already sold it twice over to different people. He had sold the car. When I went to the bank to try and cash the children's policies, they had already been cashed. Our joint account was empty. When Rumor was handed a list of the debts her husband owed to his brokerage firm and was asked by the managing director, "What are you going to do?" she said, "Pay them." Of course, this is the first response an honorable woman would have, isn't it? But it shouldn't be. No is the correct answer, in case you're wondering. These were not her debts. In I sense you're mulling over the situation, as I once did. That's because no is such a foreign word for so many women. Rumor didn't find it in her vocabulary. What a steep learning curve is the wisdom to say no in order to take care of ourselves. Learning to take care of yourself first is hard because it goes against the grain of our nurturing nature. Here's the difficult lesson Rumor Godden shares with us as we come to terms with gaining authentic balance in our lives, which includes clarity, safety, and solvency. Of all the silly things I have done in my life, I expect that was the silliest. It took almost all the Black Narcissus money I have saved. In those 2 words, I threw away what would have been some security for myself and the children. But still, she had to go on, and she did, writing another 67 books with grit, grace, and moxie. To despair is traitorous to your gift, was her message to me many mornings, virtually pulling open the curtains and setting a cup of tea on the nightstand. To wake for the first time in a new place can be like another birth. So let's recognize each morning that the gift of today is wondrous. Every book I write, a novel, a memoir that is even remotely connected with our family, begins the same way, with a landfall and alighting in a strange place to start a new life, probably in a new way, Rumor Garden shares. The first thing I try to do anywhere, in any house, is to make it into a home. Slowly, the deserted house becomes alive. Perhaps I feel such a cherished kinship with her because my life seems to have mirrored the upheaval she also endured in seeking and finding her houses of belonging. But it is Rumor Godden who has taught me that forever begins and ends every 24 hours, a priceless discovery and treasure beyond measure. Once you get over the shock of it, you have no idea of the sheer relief that comes when you simply delete the word forever from your vocabulary and stop trying to fit every dream into a cubbyhole of eternal impossibility. Instead, let us awake fresh to each individual day in our newly imagined house of belonging. Until tomorrow, I hope you have an amazing and blessed day.